Today we're going to look at acceptance versus understanding. Is there a difference between the two? Well, let's face it, folks. The United States is becoming more diverse. In 2014, for the first time, children entering kindergarten were considered minorities, what we consider minorities. Now, these children are 15. They're 15. They're going to be in college in 2 years. They're going to be in the workforce in maybe 3, 4 more years. Going forward, this we've always done it model in education and in the workforce and business, it's not going to work. Changes have to occur. They have to occur in culture, recruitment, retention, training, and turning managers into enablers and facilitators. While education and business might not understand what's occurring or how to make it occur, they have to understand it's happening, it's coming, and they better accept it. So acceptance versus understanding. Let's look at this. My guest is Cecilia Stanton Adams. I'm really excited to have her on this show. She's the co-founder and CEO of Stanton Adams Consulting. Now, her journey in the diversity, equity, and inclusion world is her passion. It's not a job, it's a passion. From academic research to hands-on consulting, her path has been very, very diverse. Adventure is filled with learning, challenges, and the joy of making a real difference in the world. She's certified in diversity recruiting, intercultural development, cultural intelligence, and unconscious bias, things that we all have to address. Cecilia, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Hello, Frank. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, I'm thrilled. You and I spoke a couple of weeks back, and I love your story, and I want you to share some of the background. How did you get into it?
Oh my gosh. So I grew up in New York City, in Manhattan, surrounded by lots of diversity. And even in my home, we're very multiracial. I come from a Latino family, but we're multiracial. So in my own family, I saw us representing many colors, and we all loved each other, right? Like color really felt like it didn't matter. And then when I got older and started going out into the world, my experiences start to tell me different. And, I was oftentimes kind of pointed out like, hey, that's your mom? Like, she can't be your mom because, she's fair skinned, right? You're black and that can't be your sister because, she's black. Like those kind of things stay with you as a young person. You're not able to really process that, right? And so I think for me, diversity work really started out as a personal journey of understanding my own identity and where I fit in the world. And it felt like I didn't fit in a lot of places,
Mhm.
being Latino, but also being, Black. In the Latino community, there's lots of division, and we don't like to talk about it, right? But
That's
it
right.
is there. It is there. I came out as a lesbian at age 16. And so, New York City, in the 80s is probably not a bad place to come out as gay, but within my family, my Catholic family, that was not something that they understood or accepted. And
Mhm.
so, that has come a long way, since then, and
Yes.
they've learned a lot. And my mom loves the Pride Parade. So, things change and they can get better. But again, it was like finding that place where I didn't have to choose which part of myself I could be.
Right.
And that was my journey into adulthood and kind of what brought me to the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And when you went to college, was this the goal? Was this the intent? Or was it just get a degree and get a job?
Okay, so I was the first in my family to go to college.
Mhm.
So I really kind of struggled my way through trying to figure out, the unwritten rules and how
Yes.
to really get through. And I really did want a job. I remember I wanted a job with benefits. Now, it's funny coming full circle because today benefits is still
That's exactly
number
right.
one, right? But I never thought about like having a career in something where I could feel fulfilled, like I'm giving back and changing the world. And, through the research that I was doing, I started to explore issues of race and self-esteem. Again, trying to understand my own experience. But in the process, I started to understand this more expansive experience of people, right, and communities and
Right.
the historical events that have created kind of the, situation that we have today that is, becoming very polarized. That was, I think, a really important part of me really saying, this is where I want to make a difference. And I asked my advisor, I said, hey, I want to study diversity. And she was like, there's no major for diversity, so pick something else. So I picked psychology, and so I got my degree in psychology. I went on to get my master's in sociology, and I did a predoctoral fellowship in unconscious bias. So I actually got to be in the lab at Lehigh University,
Nice.
their cognitive science department. And that was when we were really starting to understand the fact that within milliseconds, we categorize people based on race, age, gender. You know,
Mm.
how people used to always say, well, I don't judge. People still say that, I don't judge. But it's like, no, we actually do judge. That's the way our brain works. And just the way it categorizes, like this bottle of water or this mug really quickly, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to quickly think I know all these aspects about you. And then it triggers any experiences that you might have had with a person that way, right? And then sometimes you project those experiences from the past onto this new situation.
That's
Um,
right.
and that's
That's
where we have
right.
challenges, which is where I find my work.
Exactly. I spoke with another person on unconscious biases, and she said a Harvard study had the human brain, 11 million, processes 11 million things through our five senses per second,
Yes.
per second.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then she paused and she goes, guess how many we consciously act upon? And I
Right.
said, half. And she goes, no, 50.
Yeah.
50.
Yeah. Like
So
we can't.
don't tell me you're not judging and you're not consciously doing it, but these neural pathways in your brain are already, they're all triggering, correct?
Exactly. And it doesn't make us bad people, but it does set us up sometimes for miscommunication and for the inability to connect across those cultural differences.
Mhm.
And in college is when I started working on diversity. I was helping the deans increase the retention of students that were coming from lower socioeconomic background as well as students of color. And it was such a great program because it gave them about three months experience on campus before anyone else got on campus. And the things that really made a difference was they were able to build relationships with faculty on campus. They were able to figure out where everything was. So when everybody else came on campus, they knew everything. They knew the rundown. And they got classes in math and science to give them, that heads up so that they can actually do well in those foundational courses. And what we ended up seeing was a huge increase in retention of those students. And it's funny because I see some of them today that I had in my first program on LinkedIn, and they're doing like big things. Um, and so that at that point it was like, yes, this can actually make a difference. Diversity to me was about building a bridge for access, right? So
Mhm.
people that were in lower socioeconomic status, communities that have been historically, shut out or not have had access, people with disabilities. There's so many different communities that really could benefit from just starting at a level playing field. And to me, that's what diversity work was all about.
Exactly. It's something where when I was coming up a long time ago, it was a box, right? And you check the box.
Yes.
And I remember being at one event, and they were just starting. This is in the 70s, and they're just starting to talk about it. And one of the vice presidents was saying, "Well, we need a Hispanic." Okay, well, Frank, you look like you could be Hispanic. Check that box. We need a Native American. Frank, you could be a Native American. Check that box, right?
Right.
And I said, "Well, wait, you got me down for like 15 things." And he says, "Well, we got to check a box."
Right.
It's beyond that, correct?
Yeah. It's so beyond that. And I think that was our initial understanding of it. And the fact that, people didn't even have access to work in certain places, right? And so it was truly about equality back then, and helping groups of people who have not had the opportunity to really work alongside each other, help them understand how to respect each other and, see the value in each other's differences. um,
Mhm.
that has evolved to, I remember we went through a period of like multicultural, right, where the focus was on, celebrating. So everything was like a potluck, or, just bringing people to the table to even have the conversation. We went through the tolerance period, like just tolerate, right? Like that's as high as we can go. I think what has changed is that over time we've gotten more and more research and data that shows us what it is, what are the qualities of diversity that really create that space for innovation to happen, right? So if you think about it, if you have a group of people that all come from the same, upbringing, same, educational background, and you're asked them to solve a problem, right? There's going to be probably a limited number of things that they're going to bring to the table.
Exactly.
However, if you bring together people from different backgrounds, right? Like they're going to see things completely differently. But if you don't really work to get those differences to see each other, you're just going to have chaos, right? And that's where people stop at the chaos. But if you work at it to create those bridges, you're actually going to get the benefit of diversity, which is innovation and connection and building trust.
That's enormous, the trust component. Well, I was in the military in the early 70s. And again, when it first started, they came in and said, we're going to do race relations. And the training was terrible. The training was terrible. We had no data, we had no facts. It was don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Right. Now in the military, you can do that. You can say, don't do this. You can't do that on the outside.
Right.
Right. Now you have data. Right.
Mhm.
And this is what you're bringing to these organizations. Look, here's some real things. Here's improvements in recruitment. Here's
Yeah.
retention. Okay. What I saw as a big deal as I became a corporate CEO was managing conflicts. How did it help do that?
Yes. I mean, it's all about stepping into the center of conflict. Because that's where the challenge is, right? When people come together that are different, they may on the surface get along until they come to a point where they have a disagreement or there is a miscommunication. And then it's easy to just write it off as like, oh, they're just this kind of person, right? Like
Hmm.
blame it on something that's at the surface level, as opposed to really digging deep and understanding like what culturally might be different in the way that they're interpreting this situation that they would come to this conclusion,
Hmm.
right? We don't take that extra step. We just think about kind of like our own processes. Now we have so much data-driven approaches that tell us, that diverse teams do outperform homogeneous teams. That when you see diversity, not just in the lower ranks of the organization, but at the highest ranks, right, the board, at the leadership level, that you do have an increase in revenue and, better productivity. And it makes sense because it's not just the check the box, right? It's not just the person being there that's a person of color. It's the atmosphere that has been created that allows for someone to move up to those ranks that may be different, right? Only
Exactly.
within a culture that, really values differences do you see that.
I see that all the time, Cecilia. I was working with an organization one time, and the CEO had contacted me, and he says, Frank, we're not growing, we're struggling, we're floundering. And you probably hear the same thing many times. And I said, well, why do you perceive that to be the problem? And he said, I look at my board, and I've said this story many, many times. All I see is old, fat, bald white guys. We went to the same school, we go to the same church, we belong to the same clubs, we finish each other's sentences. He goes, at one point I thought that was good, but now we got this group think, and we're not growing and we're not expanding.
Yeah.
So it seems to me, the business world, which initially was fighting this, seems to be more receptive. And the governmental sector, which was very much promoting this, seems to be pulling back and wanting to stop it. What do you attribute this to?
Yeah. I mean, we've been seeing a growing resistance, since even before the affirmative action case that was overturned around the college system. That was kind of the first time that people were really awakened to this idea that number one, what do you mean like you have a program like that at the college? Like, does that mean certain groups get, a head start more than others? Right. So there was confusion about what it meant, and how it was going to impact people. So I think, lots of folks were thinking, well, maybe that was my opportunity. I was supposed to get in and someone else didn't. So we've
Mhm.
seen lawsuits come up over the
Yes.
years of students, complaining of like, this group took my spot. And so that's kind of the contention with that. And the funny thing about it is like there's not a whole lot of schools that even have affirmative action programs. It's a very limited number, and it's not in the way that maybe people would think of it in the past. It really was about considering diversity. So when they put together a class, right, of students that they want to bring in, they want that class of students to be diverse, right? Because that diversity enhances their experiences and their learning. So in those cases, it's going to make sense that you might pull from groups that are traditionally underrepresented. And I think for some folks, it's this feeling of no, that shouldn't have gone to that person. But you know, they can be just as good, right? Like it's the other challenge is that people think that it's lowering the bar, that what was
Yes.
happening in the colleges and universities was lowering the bar, and actually was just leveling the playing field. Um, Enough said about that because we know that now that's kind of spread through the college and university systems. And we're seeing a lot of things like DEI training being taken out, chief diversity officers, or those that are leading multicultural offices being let go. So there's definitely a real impact there. But what's interesting is what's happening on the business side is that they've already have gone down the path of recognizing that there is value in diversity. Number one, they need to have employees. And as you said at the beginning of the show, right, like we are a diverse country and we're continuing to become more diverse. Part of our infrastructure around the workforce has always been partially immigration, right? So if that continues to be the case, then we're going to continue to bring in more diversity into the country, and so companies will have to recruit those folks, and people want to come to companies where they can see people like themselves, right? Especially at the top,
Exactly.
because it tells you you can make it. I think the ultimate driving force, though, is that the customers are changing. The clients are changing. So the people that are purchasing from companies, they're changing. And so, in order to really get to those markets, and really be able to gain the trust of these communities, they have to learn the communities, right? They have to build relationships and trust, especially with certain communities who historically maybe have been, treated negatively in that particular industry that you're in.
Mhm.
So companies have to kind of work a little bit harder. So I think all of those things kind of meld together to create this firestorm of, businesses saying, hey, like this is not just about moral, political, this is about business and
Yes.
about a competitive advantage.
I'm seeing that more and more. I live in San Diego and I live in Arizona, and you see a lot of commercials now where you didn't see them 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they'll be talking in Spanish or they'll be showing different diverse entities and organizations. And I remember some people saying, well, what are they doing that for? And I said, because those are the customers. Those are the people who are buying your business, buying your product and your service. And I think the business sector finally, the light's gone on. And it's sad that the other side, the governmental sector, is trying to pull it away. One of the things I hear, Cecilia, a lot, I like your input on this, is I heard, Frank, the original intent was good. It was a good idea, but it's gone too far. We just the pendulum always goes too far, right? And now I heard Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, saying, "Look, I'm considered diverse because I'm a woman and I'm African American." But she lists off all her degrees and she lists off all her credentials. Okay, what do you say when you hear this? It's gone too far.
Yeah. First, I would get an understanding of what their reality is, right? What is their understanding and experience of diversity? Because oftentimes it is maybe something like your memories in the military of, oh, it's that training, right? It's the one
Right.
thing that's going to force us to do something we don't want. When in fact, it really is about not only understanding the diversity and accepting diversity of other people, but also of yourself. And that's the part I feel like we're missing, because everybody is diverse, right? Even people within the same household, twins are diverse, because diverse is just the state of being different and having differences. Your gender plays in, your race, your class, not just for certain groups, but for everyone. I talk to lots of white folks when they're kind of going through training with me, and I'll ask them about their culture, and they'll be like, "Well, I'm just American. I don't really have a culture." And I'm like, "No, everybody has a culture." And let's go back further. Let's try to understand some of the influences that happened throughout, your history, because that helps you create the story of yourself. And when you have a strong sense of who you are, I feel like you become less worried about someone else coming in to take over,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you start to have a broader perspective and you start to see the opportunities versus seeing it as something to be feared.
Exactly. I spoke with one group and they said, Frank, it's a scarcity bias. We don't
Yep.
think there's enough and it's being taken from me, but there's more than enough. There is more than enough out there. And that time and energy bias, it's as one person explained it, you're basically building a bigger table. So more people, you're not taking anything away from it. You're building a bigger table so more people can be involved. And inclusion, I've been reading and been told, is it's not a guarantee. It's just simply, going to give you an opportunity. And that's all it is. It's
Yes.
just an opportunity. And then what you do with it, that's up to you. Correct?
Yes, that's exactly it. And it's about recognizing all different types of diversity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Really, really understanding different types and appreciating it. I worked with Dr. Hughes out at Bay College in the Upper Peninsula. She's the president of the college, and they worked through their strategic planning. And one of the things they learned was that, there are a growing number of people with disabilities in their area, right, that are in high schools that, eventually will come to the college, hopefully. And they also learned that there were a higher number of veterans in the area than in other areas, right? So it gives them a unique opportunity to find ways to create access for those communities that are there. I think people don't really see that part of it, but that's why we have to keep bringing awareness to it, like you're doing on the show, and talking about it and helping people to understand that this is to benefit all of us. There are not even enough people to fill the roles that companies have, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
Exactly. Being a veteran and having a brother who's a quadriplegic, it's something where you the talent is there. Now it's
yeah,
a matter of saying, here's how it translates. Here's
yes,
how it fits into the where you're trying to get to. I'm speaking at a veterans event next week, and one of the things is, look, every organization, this is corporate CEO for a lot of years, everyone wants loyalty, they want intelligence, they want persistency, They want integrity. They want perseverance. They want you to be able to overcome obstacles. Okay. That's not a gender-based thing. That's not a race-based thing. That's an internal thing, correct?
Yes.
You either have it
Yes.
or you don't. And that's what we have to make people aware of.
Hmm.
That's got to be the step.
Yeah, I
I
love
hear a lot of a frequent comment is, as we said in the beginning, understanding versus accepting, right?
Yeah,
I may never understand what it's like to be a African American female,
right.
but you have to be able to accept it. Is that the message that's coming across?
Yeah, I truly believe that. And, one of the movements that kind of really struck me the wrong way was the tolerance movement. I mentioned it earlier.
Yes,
And that never sat right with me because, underneath it all, I think about our humanity, the humanity that links us all. And when we think about that, I don't want to just feel like, okay, I understand you. Like, I want to really embrace you, like be able to say, I maybe don't understand exactly what you're going through, but you are perfect as you are, right? And I accept you as you are, and we can find ways to work together. That's the beauty in, coming together as a country the way we do.
I agree. I agree. I hear one group, a futurist I interviewed, and he was saying, Frank, the jobs that are predictable and repeatable are going to go to technology. So stop saying your job is being taken away.
Right.
Technology took your job away. He told me buggy whip manufacturers and blacksmiths was a highly in demand. Nobody
That's
took
right.
that. Technology took that job away. So part of is it's taking the traditional model of you're a really good, like I was in sales and marketing. Frank, you're a real good salesperson, so you're going to be an outstanding vice president of sales.
Right.
Not necessarily the
Doesn't always
case,
translate. Right.
right? So it's enabling, building a world of enablers and facilitators. And that's
Yeah.
what I see occurring. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, I love the term facilitator because I think that's what the leader has to have. Today's leader has to be a facilitator, someone that can see the potential in others, be able to bring people together around a common purpose and to really be able to connect and build trust with people within their community as well as outside of their community. Um, that's really, I think, going to be the game changer in leadership.
I agree. It's very interesting that there's so much doomsday stuff. Okay, AI is going to take over the world. Diversity is going to take everything going to take over the world. These are
Right.
tools. These are
Yeah,
tools, correct?
exactly.
It's a
Exactly.
tool to help you improve, to help you get better, to help your organization thrive. And once I would love to get your info when you see this, you see a light go on sometimes with these people like that. Oh,
Yeah. Yes. Like, I mean, even talking about being introverted versus extroverted. A lot of people don't realize, like, usually in the workplace, it kind of is half and half, right? Or, three portions. You have some folks that are also kind of in the middle, ambiverts. But that is a huge impact on how you communicate with the world, how you process things. And yet we don't really understand the other person. So like I've ran a business with my wife. She's introverted, I'm extroverted. She says that I'm a microwave, she's a crock pot. And like we definitely feel it as we're working together. Like I want her to respond right away. I need to get immediate feedback. And then, sometimes while she's processing, I'm like talking out loud because that's the way I process.
mhm.
And it can be irritating if you don't really value the difference, right? And I still don't understand what it's like to be an introvert. I just can't because my lens is extroversion. But I can accept that she does need that time to process something, and I need to, give her that time so that she can be her best as well.
Right. I spoke to someone on emotions and they said, Frank, you can't, there's no perfect world. And we cannot control everything that happens to us. But
Right.
however, we can control how we reflect and react,
Yeah.
right? And we have total control over our thoughts and our actions and our words, right? So it's
Yeah.
reflect and redirect. Those were the terms he
Yes.
used: reflect and redirect, and have the patience. Now, in the business world, they would say, "Well, I don't have time for this." Well, yeah, you do,
You're right.
right?
You have to. Yeah.
Because the amount of time you're going to take correcting a bad decision or going down the wrong path is that's waste. That you just wasted all that energy as opposed to thinking it through and getting input from all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
Let's see how this is going to be and what gives us the best opportunity for success. Correct? Is that what we're looking for?
Exactly, exactly. And not to cause more harm so that you end up now also having to like mend a fence, right?
Exactly.
Mend those relationships that you broke. Really work hard to build those trusting relationships first and then maintain it.
I speak at a number of colleges, and one of the things that I'll hear in the informal conversations is they're smart. These kids are
Yeah.
smart,
Oh, yeah.
and they're all connected. And when an
Yes.
organization is operating in bad faith, they're not giving opportunities. That word gets out like that,
Yes.
and all of a sudden, you're getting a lot of applications in, but you're not getting the quality people because they're not going to go there.
No. No. And I think, after the George Floyd's murder, that I think that was a pivotal moment in time where the business community was really pressured to take a stand, to speak up. You saw a lot of organizations fumble and not know what to do, right? And I think there's still folks are still recovering from that, and they're still trying to figure out that balance with, how much do we owe to the community versus our, board versus our employees. Um, it's about thinking about all of them as stakeholders, right?
Mhm.
It's not just the consumer, it's not just the board, it's all of the pieces that, make the ecosystem run.
Exactly. Well, it's been enlightening, Cecilia. I've really love your input. We're just about out of time. What last words and thoughts do you want to leave with the people around the world tonight?
Yes. I would say build your awareness, right? Like wherever you're at, no matter what stage you are in really understanding DEI, get online and read about it. Find out for yourself exactly what it's all about, and really use it to understand your own diversity and start with appreciating and understanding and accepting yourself in all your diverse ways. And that's going to be a great giant step towards really being able to see and value the diversity in others.
Exactly. Well, after people see this, they're going to get a hold of you. So how do they get a hold of you?
Awesome. Well, they can find me at stantonadams.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a great newsletter I do once a month. So you can check me out there, Cecilia Stanton Adams. You can just drop that in LinkedIn and that'll pop up, or stantonadams.com.
And folks, when you do reach out to her, she gets back to you quickly. That's how we connected. It was very quickly. So as I said, we're just about out of time. I want to thank you again, Cecilia. This was outstanding for
Thank
showing
you.
us that while we may not understand everything that's happening, we can accept what's happening. And change is going to occur. Whether we want it to happen or not, it's going to happen. So let's accept it and let's move forward and make the best of what's occurring. Now you can see the show on my podcast, which is called Life Altering Events. It's on my YouTube channel, which is called Frank Zakari. It will be on Parade Deck, on LinkedIn. It'll be all over the place, so you'll have a lot of access to it. I will also send links to Cecilia, and she'll post it everywhere she puts out her information. If you use the YouTube channel, please subscribe. Let me leave you with this. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Cecilia showed us where many of those rocks are. Join us again next week. We get into another life altering event. Cecilia, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.